Is it true that Poppy was actually a person who was part of the founder's family of Playtime? Is there really some sort of dark magic involved in the toy factory's creation process? Or is it just some sort of macabre science? We've investigated everything about the internet's most famous new horror game and uncovered incredible and yet terrifying details that led us to the revelations behind the life pulsating within the Poppy doll. To know everything about this sinister story, stick with us until the end. You might already know and have played Poppy Playtime, or perhaps this is the first time you're hearing about this horror game. So, let's quickly provide some context about what this mysterious electronic game is and how it unfolds. Poppy is the doll that gives its name to the game. She was created by the company Playtime in the year 1950. The toy factory was founded in 1930 by a man named Elliot, a great inventor. But the truth is, in the end, this became a facade to justify Playtime keeping an orphanage full of children who would be used in bizarre experiments with the macabre purpose of maintaining the immortality of the soul, transforming it from a human to a much more durable body, that of toys. This isn't immediately explicit in the game, but it's gradually revealed as you interact, believe it or not, with Poppy herself, who has a life of her own within the abandoned, completely destroyed Playtime factory, filled with macabre toys that also have a life of their own and infest the place. Some are harmless and help you, even if we're not sure why, and others simply want to kill you or literally eat you alive, because they're not toys, at least not anymore, but rather a kind of hybrid that even bleeds and has organs. Weird, right? But don't worry, the story is about to get even denser. That was just the prelude. Today, the Poppy Playtime game has introduced various toy characters, each with a denser backstory than the other, involved in a lot of suffering and agony. And we could even make other videos about each of the characters and their macabre backstories, but today, our focus will really be on Poppy and everything directly related to her. The doll's name is derived from the flower of the same name, which is a plant from which opium is extracted, a very strong analgesic with narcotic effects. Basically, that thing that makes people dependent that we can't talk about here. And no, this isn't a coincidence, as the flower is found at some moments during the game, besides the fact that the doll's red hair is directly related to the colors of the poppy flower petals. And this will be very important for you to understand who is behind both the creation of Poppy and who is behind the life that keeps her thinking and acting even after so many years of existence. Elliot, the company's founder and the twisted mind behind the, let's say, transhumanization of toys, had a very strong belief in the powers of the poppy flower. Mainly because thousands of years ago, and this part is 100% real, various peoples around the globe perform rituals using the substances within these flowers, such as the Sumerians, Greeks, and ancient Chinese. In the brilliant scientist's mind, it possessed powers that went beyond human reason and were linked to the ability to keep the human soul alive even after the body deteriorated. As an aggravating factor in this whole situation, as the game progresses, we find out that Elliot was married, and as soon as he founded the company, his wife and he divorced. And furthermore, in 1960, Elliot suffered a great family loss, meaning someone very close to him passed away. It's not confirmed who this person was, but this is exactly where the most sinister theories about the origin of Poppy begin, and there's a high possibility that she has some sort of connection, even blood-related, to Elliot, making her, in a way, the possible current owner of Playtime, at least in terms of inheritance. And what a cursed inheritance! One thing is certain, Poppy is a girl, or a woman. During the saga of the game's first chapter, ironically released on Children's Day in 2021, Poppy is found inside a glass box, trapped. And the player's goal, at least at that moment, is to free the doll. Just a small observation. Few people who played the game noticed the correlation, but the situation in which Poppy is found bears a striking resemblance to the origin of Annabelle, that same doll protagonist of horror movies. But to be more precise, Poppy herself has very similar traits to the real Annabelle, who exists and is kept in the Warren Occult Museum. Guess where? In a glass box. Just like Poppy, the real Annabelle, believed to have evil spirits trapped inside her to this day, has very red hair and is very pale. The difference is that Annabelle is made of cloth and Poppy is made of porcelain. When the Poppy doll was released in 1950, she was a sales success and could converse with children. All the dolls said the same thing: "I am a person just like you." And this slogan was much more real than anyone could imagine. The truth is that when the doll was released, she was really just a common toy, but this Poppy slogan somehow, after the family loss Elliot suffered, became so ingrained in the businessman's mind that he began to create experiments to make what the purest reality and for Poppy to become someone, like any of us, living beings. Now, this is where the pieces start to connect, revealing the true origin of Poppy. The thing is, if Elliot was married until 1930 and someone he loved dearly passed away in 1960, it wouldn't be far-fetched to think that during his marriage, Molly, that was his wife's name, they might have had a daughter. And because Elliot was wealthy and powerful, after the divorce, he would have had custody of the girl, as he could provide a better life for her due to his financial status. But 30 years passed, and Elliot's daughter grew up and became a woman, and probably due to some kind of terminal illness, even after spending a fortune, his daughter's health did not improve. During this period, Elliot's relationship with the poppy flower became even more intense, as his daughter constantly needed doses of morphine and opium to alleviate her long days and nights of suffering caused by this incurable disease, just to minimize her pain. However, Elliot believed that besides easing the pain, the poppy flowers and their derivatives could do much more, but he didn't have enough time, as his beloved daughter's life was snatched away before his eyes. And beside Elliot, at that moment, sadly watching everything closely was his little precious granddaughter, with her beautiful, guess what, red hair, like Poppy's petals, just like her now deceased mother, and just like Poppy. The trauma of that moment deepened Elliot's theories and experiments. Through documents found during the game describing Experiment 814, it is clear that the initial experiments were conducted on rats, where Elliot and his employees killed the animals and tried to revive them using the essence of poppies. This was the path the Playtime owner followed for several years, even decades, until he discovered that his granddaughter had the same disease as her mother. And now, in the 1990s, she was no longer a little girl, but the chief scientist, working side by side with her grandfather in an attempt to find a way to preserve life so that no other child would lose their mother as she did. Upon reaching her 30s, Elliot's granddaughter began to experience the same symptoms her mother had at the same age, indicating that the disease had been genetically transmitted and that it would only be a matter of time before she herself began to experience excruciating pain and eventually die. So, the orphanage that the businessman philanthropically and kindly maintained became a supplier of raw materials, almost like a butcher, for his experiments, with the sole aim of finding a solution, whatever it might be, so that death would not strike his family again. After several experiments, many of which failed miserably, resulting in the loss of countless children who were induced to cooperate thinking they would be adopted. After many attempts, finally, the results began to appear in other toys, and probably at this point, characters like Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs, Kissy Missy, and maybe even Catnat and Dog Day were successful. The thing is, the children didn't have health problems or anything like that, justifying that their lives were interrupted and turned into toys, which is certainly a huge cruelty. At this point, Elliot's granddaughter, his last heir, who would rightfully be the owner of Playtime and at the same time be one of the best scientists on the team, volunteered to be the guinea pig to inhabit Poppy's body before she ceased to live, as the disease was increasingly aggravated. And, after the extremely painful process, the woman's body lay motionless and lifeless on one side, but on the other, little Poppy opened her eyes, began to move and speak, having her own consciousness and mind, only now in a body that would not be attacked by any other diseases. That's the theory about the real origin of the sinister doll we see in the Poppy Playtime game. The fact is that at some point, Poppy herself, after a terrifying incident involving prototype 1006, regretted everything she, her grandfather, and the company's team of scientists did to those children. It was Poppy herself who summoned the player, who is a former employee of Playtime, to return to the factory to help her stop the prototype, sending him a letter and a tape. Who is this employee? What are his real connections to the Ludwig family? Or who is behind prototype 1006? Are topics and questions for even more sinister videos than this one. For now, that was the theory that tells the supposed true origin story of Poppy and all the atrocities that occurred and still occur at Playtime. Did you know this story and this game? If so, comment down below. If not, like and share this video. And as a gift, we leave 2 amazing videos for you to watch here on the screen. Thanks, and until next time!